I was halfway through my second cup of coffee when I heard the shouting. The morning had been quiet, gray light bleeding through the blinds, the hum of the office HVAC, the faint tick of my desk clock. Then, sharp and jagged, her voice cut through it. "Don't you dare talk to me like that." Heads turned. I glanced up over the cubicle wall. Hannah stood near the copier, her cheeks flushed, hands clenched into fists. Across from her was Kyle, tan, grinning, leaning back on one foot like this was a game. "You've been stealing my work," she said, loud enough for the entire floor to hear. "And I'm not going to let you." She caught sight of me, watching, and stopped. I looked away. Slowly, my coffee had gone cold. Kyle and I weren't friends. We weren't enemies, either. We were something in between. He'd joined the firm 2 years after me, a smooth talker with an easy laugh and a knack for getting people to like him. I'd watched him climb fast, faster than most. The first time he'd spoken to me outside work hours was after an office happy hour. He'd slapped me on the back, beer in hand, and said, "You're a smart guy, Mark. We should stick together." At the time, I'd thought nothing of it. The outburst didn't fade the way office gossip usually does. That afternoon, Hannah avoided eye contact. Kyle walked around with that same relaxed smile, as if nothing had happened. But I noticed small things, a glance from him when he thought no one was looking, a smirk when Hannah passed by, a word here and there dropped into conversation with the right people. By the end of the week, whispers had shifted. "Did you hear Hannah's numbers were off? She's been slipping for months." None of it was true. I knew because I'd seen her reports. She was meticulous. 3 months earlier, Kyle had asked me for a favor, a short-term loan. He called it, "just until a bonus cleared." "I'm good for it," he'd said, flashing that same smile. It wasn't a huge amount, but it wasn't nothing either. Enough that I'd noticed it missing from my account. Weeks passed, no repayment, then excuses, then silence. When Hannah was called into HR, I saw Kyle leaning against the wall near the conference room, scrolling through his phone like he owned the place. His tie was loosened, his posture casual, but his eyes were sharp. Watching, I started paying attention. Kyle stayed late on Tuesdays and Thursdays. He took his lunch in his car. His desk drawers were locked, not just the top one, but all of them. One night, I accidentally stayed past 9, waiting until he left. In the quiet hum of the empty office, I picked the lock on his bottom drawer. Inside, a thin folder with Hannah's name on it, photocopies of reports she'd submitted, altered to look like she'd made serious errors, an unsigned HR complaint form, and near the back, a spreadsheet of debt repayment plans. My name in the third column, paid in full box, left empty. I didn't take the folder. Not yet. Instead, I waited. Over the next week, I caught snippets of Kyle feeding stories to management, spinning the idea that Hannah was unstable, prone to emotional outbursts, maybe even dangerous. I watched as he maneuvered meetings so he could speak first, setting the narrative before anyone else could weigh in. And through it all, I kept my head down. Quiet, forgettable. Here's the thing, Kyle thought I was harmless. He'd underestimated me from the start. That was fine. People show you their real face when they think you're not a threat. On Friday, I asked him, casually, in the break room, about the money he owed me. He laughed it off, still holding that over me. "You know I'll pay you back, buddy." That night, I went back to the office. I took the folder, scanned every page, and left the originals exactly where they were. I also found something I hadn't expected, an audio recorder tucked into his desk organizer. I checked the files. One was labeled with yesterday's date. Hannah's voice, shaky, mid-argument. Only, I remembered that conversation. She'd never said half the things on the recording. He'd spliced it together. Monday morning, I handed HR a neat packet. The altered reports, the fabricated complaint, the spliced audio file. I kept my tone calm, even bored, as I explained where I'd found them. I didn't mention the debt. That was personal. 2 hours later, Kyle was called into the same conference room where Hannah had sat the week before. This time, when the door closed, it stayed closed. When he finally emerged, his smile was gone. He didn't look at me. He didn't look at anyone. By the end of the day, his desk was empty. That night, I checked my bank account. The repayment had been made in full. The next morning, I walked into the office, poured myself a coffee, and took my seat. Hannah nodded at me from across the floor. I nodded back, and I didn't look away. Some debts aren't paid in dollars.